Breaking news this hour, Fox News is confirming that the Justice Department has opened a probe into California Congressman Eric Swalwell over alleged mortgage fraud. This after a criminal referral from Federal Housing Director Bill Pulte, who made allegations surrounding millions of dollars in loans and refinancing based on Swalwell declaring his primary residence is in Washington, not California. Swalwell branding himself a target of the president, saying this: as the only person who still has a surviving lawsuit against him, the only thing I am surprised about is that it took him this long to come after me, says Swalwell. I will not end my lawsuit against President Trump, and I will not stop speaking out against the president, claims the California congressman. Joining me now is former federal prosecutor, former acting ICE director, and former DHS Deputy Assistant Secretary Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, great to see you. Thanks for weighing in on this. Your reaction to the criminal referral on Eric Swalwell.
Well, I think it's pretty interesting, and certainly his reaction, we'll get to in a second, but the fact that he is listing his primary residence in Washington, D.C., assuming that's all true, and yet he's representing California in Congress, there's a problem there because you can't be a primary resident of both. So I think the things they're going to be looking into are, what's he saying on his tax returns? Where does he have a driver's license? Does he even have a home in California? And what is he listed with that? Because my understanding is one of the addresses that was supposedly his address in California, somebody else lives there. So he could have a problem either way this thing shakes out. If he's falsely claiming a primary residence to get a lower interest rate and therefore money, that's a problem. If he actually lives in Washington, D.C. and isn't living in California but is voting there and represents there where he's required to be an inhabitant of the state, that's a problem too. So it's quite interesting. And just real quick on his response, President Trump probably has no idea that Eric Swalwell has a suit against him. And when you have a response like that, it makes you think, you know, there's something up because he didn't directly answer the question. And if the answer to the question is, I primarily live here, but I'm also an inhabitant of California, he could have just said that, but he didn't. So that, I think it'll be very interesting as to what they come up with when they start digging a little bit deeper.
Well, look, we know that Eric Swalwell has been against this president from day one, and he's been more of a friend to China than a friend to the president of the United States. Don't forget that Swalwell had this suspected Chinese spy gaining access to California politics for so long, as he had an affair or some kind of a romantic relationship with Fang, Jonathan. So there's that, and that's not even part of this investigation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, what was going on with Fang would certainly, you know, I think he lost his security clearance in the House or wasn't allowed to be on the Intel Committee because of it. So this guy has certainly had a lot of questionable judgment over the years. But a lot of these Democrats are almost saying their criticism of President Trump should somehow inoculate them from any responsibility for their own actions, which doesn't make a lot of sense here. And yeah, I think he has some, you know, he needs to answer these questions because it is serious, you know, because he did presumably, if he got a lower rate, he made money because of this, if it in fact was a false statement.
Yeah, I mean, the controversy with Fang resurfaced in 2020 when there were reports that Fang had targeted multiple Bay Area politicians. This is China's M.O. They try to get involved in local politics to try to get their guy forward. Eric Swalwell was China's guy, that's for sure. And the FBI alerted Swalwell to Fang's activity in 2015. But look, this broader issue of the Democrats trying to target their political enemies is growing by the day. We are learning more evidence every day. We've got new FBI documents that show former federal special counsel Jack Smith going after the personal cell phone records of former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy as part of his probe into January 6th. This was the sitting Speaker of the House. Okay, Kevin McCarthy at the time was the Speaker of the House. They wanted his personal phone. Smith sought the same of then Congressman Louis Gohmert of Texas, all part of this quote-unquote significant case notification drafted by the FBI in 2023. Fox also learning that Smith met with former FBI Director Christopher Wray just one day before that document was drafted, after months of Operation Arctic Frost began. We learned this because Senator Chuck Grassley outed everything. He told Fox News Jack Smith claims he wants to tell his story to Congress, but when I asked him point blank if he ever met with Garland, Monaco, or Wray as part of his investigation, He refused to answer. Senators Grassley and Ron Johnson have been leading this investigation, finding nearly a dozen Republican senators had their communications tracked under the Biden White House. Jonathan, your reaction to this Arctic frost investigation. Add Kevin McCarthy, President Trump, to this list of all the people that the Democrats and Jack Smith were trying to track and spy on.
Yeah, it's really outrageous, and so much credit should be given to Chuck Grassley for just being, digging into this, because it's so outrageous what Jack Smith was doing, and this idea that he wants to tell a story. No, he wants a soapbox to make a case against President Trump and try to take him down again. But what's really outrageous about this is not only going after the members of Congress and Senate, because this is, again, a co-equal branch, and usually the Department of Justice has very stringent safeguards for doing anything investigating the co-equal branch, but then doing it in such a broad form of sending out subpoenas for everyone under the sun shows that they really not just wanted to take down Trump, which we've all known that, and everyone around him in his orbit, but also the Republican Party, because some of these subpoenas went after places like Turning Point, the Republican National Committee, the Republican Attorney General's Association. So they wanted to go after these organizations. And how does that hurt the Republican Party? Well, what does it do? Donors are then afraid to associate with these groups, don't want to support them. So it all has a chilling effect on people's First Amendment rights to associate, to donate, to be a part of these organizations. It is so shameful. But remember, during this time, this is a time period in Congress where people like Senator Schumer and others were calling to get rid of the filibuster, pack the Supreme Court. They were going full on to take down the Republican Party and using January 6th or whatever they could use as a pretext to do so, and it's so shameful. And what Jack Smith wants to do, again, he wants his moment in the sun, but he wouldn't answer direct questions from Senator Grassley, which he's obligated to do, and I hope he'll ask Chris Wray, who I expect will answer questions, but to find out what the heck was going on, why were there no safeguards on this, because it really is outrageous conduct.
Yeah, it sure is. And by the way, when I spoke with Ron Johnson over the weekend, the Wisconsin senator said that there were 38 Wisconsinites, normal, average, everyday people. They were just leading and involved in politics, local politics, who were targeted, who were actually they tried to take them down because they were supporters of President Trump. So you are spot on. This is not just about 12 lawmakers. This is not just about tracking Kevin McCarthy or President Trump. This is about anybody who supported President Trump and Republicans, broadly speaking. 200 Republican groups, including 38 honest Wisconsinites, according to Ron Johnson. We'll get into that later. Jonathan, always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We will catch up soon. Jonathan Fahey.